Yo, guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game 6 Clay podcast. It's your boy Gautam with my boys Matt and Chuck. And gentlemen, welcome back from the last time we spoke. Last time was kind of just talking about Wiseman. The panic meter came out for the first time. And that thing's gonna stay here for a while. The Warriors coming off a tough 130 to 119 loss against the Phoenix Suns. There's so much wrong with this team right now. Besides number 30, Stephen Curry. Shout out to Steph. It's dropped the saddest 50 piece that we've seen in his career. The guy was doing everything he can to put this team on his back. Just a weird time, weird vibe with this team. So this episode is gonna be fun, guys. I think so it's a good venting sesh. I think we all want to get some stuff off our chest. But before we jump into everything, as always, brothers, how we doing?
You know, uh, Doing well in life, doing poor in basketball. You know how it is.
Amen, brother. Amen.
I have a
Yeah,
hard
you know,
time separating the two. So during my brief free breaks from my students today, I was just on the trade machine all day, sweating. So you tell me, man.
As you should, man. It's Warriors basketball always consumes us, but this season to another level. We've seen 4 championships. We've gone through the heartbreaks of losing in the finals. I don't think I've been more pissed off during a regular season just game than yesterday. Just before we get into all the problems, just break down yesterday real quick. Just no defense, bad shots, fouling, just dumb fouls, and nobody's there to help out Steph. I mean, you've got Klay jacking up bad shots. You got JP not taking enough shots. JaMychal Green just looks like he should have been in the G League with Wiseman. There's so much wrong with this team right now. Just what did you guys see last night, and what were your takeaways? And kind of, it felt like last night's loss, going into last night's game, it felt like this was a chance for the Warriors to kind of right the ship, pick up that first road win against an undermanned Phoenix team. They haven't Phoenix coming in, they lost, I think, 2 out of 3. They lost to the Magic as well. So it wasn't like that this game wasn't like there for the taking. The Warriors just dropped the ball again on the road. So what did you guys see last night, and what kind of has preempted this kind of not panic session, but just kind of angry, just venting session that we're about to have right now?
yeah,
So Chuckster, all you.
yeah,
Smooth.
dude. I think the thing that strikes me the most is, when you just see the conversations around this, and a lot of that is Twitter. People are just gonna run with whatever agenda they've already got in their mind. But the thing is that there's just so many problems you can point to right now. Like, it's just the overwhelming amount of things that they're facing. Like, you want to point to Klay being out of rhythm early in the season and chucking shots. Fine, that is an issue right now. You want to point to Jordan Poole just really struggling. I think that's also very valid. You want to point to like the lack of the bench options. I get it. You want to point to the lack of the depth. It's not just one issue. It's all of these things piling on top of each other. Like, you have so many guys who are either not playing up to their standard or who are just flat out not ready to play. You have guys who aren't ready to play because they've been injured, or they're just extremely old and basically a coach at this point. Like, it's way too much going on. And now 15 games into the season, we're almost 20% of the way there. You've got Steph playing the best offensive basketball of his entire life, and it doesn't really mean much for this team. Like, he's just, he's keeping them above water when he's on the floor, and then they're just getting obliterated with him off it. So there's just so many things. So that's the one thing that's really standing out to me, is there's no one thing you can point to without pointing to 5 other things at the same time.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest. That's actually almost exactly word for word what I was going to say, Chuck. I think it's one of my biggest pet peeves right now is just the people who are really confident that if the Warriors fix this thing, they'll be fine. If they fix this one thing, they'll be fine. Like, this team is a few games under 500, and their best player might be the best player in the league. Like, that's not a one problem, one solve fix all type deal. I want to ask you guys just real quick. I mean, Klay is struggling mightily right now, and it's fair to say a lot of that's self-induced. But where are you two with Klay right now? Because I don't think there's, similar to the nuance you were just talking about, Chuck, I don't think there's really an incorrect way to look at Klay right now, unless you're posting really horrible comparisons to some of the most evil people on the planet Earth next to Klay Thompson. Besides that,
Oh my God.
if you're approaching
That's
this
the stupidest thing
rationally,
I've seen ever.
yeah, ridiculous stuff. If you've seen what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But I don't think there's a lot of bad ways to approach this. I think the position the Warriors are in kind of necessitates that we got to think outside of what might be the normal, think outside the box, as some might say.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the way I see Klay right now is I feel for him. Like it's weird. Like you know how much he's been through. Like the 2 injuries back to back to come back and then win a championship last year. But obviously he wasn't the same player that he wanted to be, and he's not. And what he's been trying to work to this season. Um, so I feel for him. I have sympathy for him. He's one of our favorite athletes in just ever. Just what this guy's done, what he's brought to this franchise should never be just overlooked or dismissed. I think he's earned that, like, the rope that he's had this far. And will continue to have. I think Klay Thompson deserves to have the chance to get back to where he wants to be as a player and needs to be for this team. But I think the way he's going about it is wrong. Or not necessarily wrong, but wrong. I think that it's I don't want to use the word selfish just because it has such a bad connotation to it, but the way Klay is shooting right now, it seems selfish. It seems like every time he gets the ball, it's like a weird little 2 dribble pull up for a bad shot. Last night, I mean, we all know that sequence where he had 2 pull-up threes where had 2 wide. It was on transition into transition. Had Wiggins open in the corner in one, and I think JP and Draymond was cutting in to the basket on the other one. So just bad shots at bad times, and it's not something we haven't seen before from Klay. I think last season when he was coming back too, we had this thing, but he kind of figured it out in the playoffs. Like when inside this offense, like Klay is going to get good shots every time. Like the offense generates good looks for Klay, and when he's set, like his feet are set, like he's knocking them down. Shout out Chuck for that piece that he had, just outlining all the misses and makes from Klay. Absolute madman thing, 1,300 clips. You guys got to go check it out. But like for Klay, you can see it. Like he's pressing, and it's hurting the team. Like point blank, he's not helping this team right now. Just the momentum killers, like that sequence last night was the Warriors were down 7. You hit Wiggins in the corner right there. He just hit a 3. I think he just had a bucket before that as well. You hit that, you're down by 4, and it's a whole new ball game. After that, I think Phoenix came down and they scored, and after that it was kind of a wrap. They kind of held that 8 to 12 point lead throughout the game. So for Klay, I mean, I want to get into this like later. I want to hear Chuck's thoughts as well, but I genuinely think that we might have to start the conversation that, especially with how Jordan Poole has been struggling off the bench, it might be time to make a little switch. And this is for the betterment of the team. And I want Klay to figure it out. I think he will, just with knowing the kind of player he has been and he's been his entire career. I think he figures it out, but the Warriors they can't afford to let him figure this out on the fly because, like you guys said, we're 6-9 right now. We are very, very mediocre. So many different holes on this team, and I know it's not going to get fixed by one or two things. But if Klay and Jordan Poole can figure this out, the Warriors can still go through. We'll still have a lot of stuff to fix, but they'll be picking up wins if Klay and JP can figure out their roles and how to positively impact this team next to Steph. So yeah, I mean I feel for Klay, but man, you are hurting this team more than you're helping it right now.
Yeah, I think so. I still feel pretty confident after going in deep on the Klay shot. Like, I feel pretty confident in most of the conclusions being good and that he will rebound with his set shot. Like, that feels pretty certain that he'll get there. But there were some negatives as well, like the fact that he's really leaning on that jumper going to his left, especially off the dribble. It's just such a higher proportion of the shots that he's taken. And the tough thing is that we don't know if that's just the new Klay, if he's just like still trying to like figure out what he is post injury. I mean, we're still at, less than a full season's worth of games played here after that. I mean, if you want to count the playoffs, we're close to a full season, but it's still, it's still getting there. And I think I think there are going to be some things where, we'll probably see the shakedown back towards even, but I think it's entirely possible that he's just kind of leaning on the things that were really good for him before the injury, and they just don't have the same effectiveness now, and he's learning how to deal with that. I do agree with you, Gautam. I think it would be a pretty good move to just like temporarily switch him to the bench, because, I think we've seen he's like Jordan Poole is obviously not really doing a whole lot defensively right now. But Klay is also really struggling on these guards.
But you can't play them together. That's the sad part right now.
Yeah, you really can't. And like if you're gonna have to stagger the two, it does make sense to have Klay playing on that bench because Wiggins can like you have a guy like Wiggins who can shift over and take some of those assignments. You have Anthony Lamb who's at least able to like shift over to guards, and you have Dante to take off some of that like primary point of attack juice. And that does present issues like that's you don't want to start like get caught playing whack-a-mole where now you have a Steph Poole defensive backcourt and you have to pick up the pieces from there, but you do have Wiggins, Draymond, Looney around that, so I'd say they're pretty well equipped to pick up those pieces. But yeah, it's just there's going to be some wait and see with Klay, and he'll definitely get stronger as the season goes on. But you nailed it right on the head, man. Like there's no time to really be waiting around anymore to see when that's going to happen, because they might be really out of the race for, good playoff spots by the time he starts to get back into form.
Yeah, I'm on the same page for the most part. I don't think, once again, like I think if you think that this starting group's been incredible so far, it's absolutely correct. But we also have a point of reference for Jordan Poole starting and the team being the best team in basketball for the first 20 games of last season, 18-2. That doesn't mean that would be replicated, and the numbers right now suggest that probably wouldn't be the case. But you just got to look at the upside of what's happening and see if you got to snap one of these two guys out of a funk. And we've seen Jordan Poole snap out of it when he starts. We've yet to see Klay snap out of it consistently at all. So it's just a matter of, hey, you guys kind of just said it. There's that cushion isn't there, right? There's no break for these guys at this point. There's not going to be one going forward. They can't afford it. For the same exact reason that Wiseman's down in the G League, you can't afford to keep fucking around with things that aren't producing wins. And you got to look at all your options. I know it's tough, and Gautam, you kind of said it. The guy's he's detrimental to the team right now in some ways, and it sucks to say that, but it's also the truth. And it does not because we don't love Klay Thompson, like you said, one of all of our favorite athletes, and he can definitely still be an effective basketball player. Like I say effective, that sounds demeaning almost. He can still be a really good basketball player. Like he can still be an efficient 16 to 18 point per game scorer, I think, and half decent defender off the bench, or even the starter if that's what keeps happening. But they're not. This team's not in a position right now, especially, and it all comes back to Steph. With Steph playing the way he is, this team's not in a position to mess around with what's not working. And right now, the Warriors scored 119 points last night.
You should lose those games.
They scored 119 points against the Suns, and the Suns didn't have Chris Paul. They didn't have Cam Johnson. That doesn't excuse Jordan Poole, by the way. Like I want to be very clear. Like Jordan Poole so far has been really disappointing, and the defense, Charlie, you already pointed out. But it's just the lack of aggression, and I've compared it to Ben Simmons, and I haven't been joking. Like he's been going to the rim, and then the guy gets to the rim when he wants. First of all, to be very clear, he gets to the rim whenever he wants to, but he gets to the rim, and he's setting up teammates. That's fantastic. I think he had 8 assists last night, but he also had 0 made field goals. So, and it looks like a level of disengagement, which again, ideally Jordan Poole is not disengaged coming off the bench. Like ideally he's still working his ass off, trying to torch the other team, but he's not right now. And they need offense. They need guys besides Steph to get buckets. And I know this team is still producing a half decent offense with what's going on. Like, again, 119 points is not bad, right? That should win you a game, but you're giving up 60, 70 points and a half almost every single night. And that's not going to change right now. And it's probably not going to change that much with Jordan Poole in the starting lineup versus Klay, I don't think. And you might just be able to get more points in transition, get the team running a little more. And then all of a sudden, you're not playing against a set defense as often as they are, which is frequent right now. And yeah, I just think it's a reasonable move to look at. I don't think they'll do it. And I think it's a big problem, but I think right now it's definitely worth taking a look at, along with literally everything to get this team going, because like you've both said, very little right now is going right with these guys.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you brought up like what Klay could be. Like, it's still a solid 16 to 18 point scorer, just like a 3 and D kind of guy. I think for Klay, like that's the thing. I think he's trying to get back to where he was in 2019. And in that Ramona Shelburne article, I'm sure a lot of people read it. Great piece. But he was talking about like he knows that he's not going to get back to that like level that he was at. But I think he's trying to get back to where like close to where he was, and that's not what like we need right now, and that's not even what he needs. Like you said, he'd be a very serviceable, even if say he does move with the back, a very serviceable 6 man that comes off. He anchors that second unit in terms of just being a guy who's always a threat on offense, especially with the second unit right now. There's no offensive threat if Jordan Poole isn't being as aggressive as he is. Wiggins, like he's also, I mean, he's been great. He's been good so far, but like again, there are times where it just there's nobody being aggressive in that second unit, and they just go on scoring droughts for just so many times, and that's why teams get ahead. And when Steph gets back in, there's you're down by 10, 11 points. So I think just having that switch up for Jordan Poole too, I think, like you said, it's been such a disappointment just to see like it doesn't even feel like he's like just if he was just missing shots like Klay is, like Klay's taking shots, which is it's good. You want Klay to be taking shots, you want him to go down, but you want him to be aggressive to be that threat. Jordan Poole's in his last games that he hasn't been starting, he's been taking like 5 or 6 shots a game like that. You should never be at that level when you are the main just kind of floor not even floor general, just the main kind of offensive supernova on that second unit, which
They paid Jordan Poole to be an 18 to 20
be a
like 4
scorer.
point per game scorer. Do you guys think this is like is this Jordan Poole like being defiant? Like I keep looking at this and thinking this is like a Kobe 2006 type thing where he's like, is this like a fuck you to I'm not starting and I should be starting type thing? Is this he's in his own head, does not want to shoot the ball? Like how are you seeing this? Because I am like, again, the game he started against San Antonio, and I'm glad I like said this and thought this to myself for my own peace of mind. Like it was San Antonio, right? Different ball game, but he started. He was super aggressive. He was doing the things that we know Jordan Poole likes to do and is good at. He was getting to the rim. He was firing away. What's going on with this guy? Because again, for me, I do think it's a bit of defiance personally, but I have no evidence to support that other than what I'm seeing on the floor. But he just doesn't look engaged, and he doesn't look like he wants to put the ball in the basket.
If that is defiance from Jordan Poole, I think that's just against who I think we all know him to be right now. Like he's the hardest worker. You've heard it from so many people. He's the hardest worker when he comes into the gym. The guy does whatever it takes to get better. Like he has all the intangibles to be a great player. So I don't think that this is defiance. I don't know what it is. And it kind of brings me back to like the fucking punch heard around the world. Like I don't know if that's what zapped it, man. Like if did that take away his confidence? Maybe. But like if that is him being defined, like, yo, I need to start, then I would get it if he wasn't coming off a contract extension, if the Warriors hadn't paid him. They paid him the money. Like he's got that long-term deal secured. He knows that he's the future of this franchise, and they've put that trust in him, $130 million trust into Jordan Poole being that guy. So if it is defiance, then I think we didn't know who Jordan Poole really was. So I don't think that's what it is. But it brings me back to that I can't stop thinking about it. Did that punch really just zap him of his confidence off coming off the bench? But again, like when he starts, he plays well. So I genuinely think it might be just the personnel around him. DiVincenzo coming back, we thought it would open up a little bit more. But if Jordan Poole's not taking the shots, no, I don't know what it is. It's got to get fixed though, because JP and Klay help out to cover so many of these mistakes if they can just get going and help out Steph and Wiggs.
Yeah, I agree. I just think there's so much going on like right now mentally with this team. And, I try, unless you're in the locker room and unless you're in these guys' heads, unless you're talking to them, you can't really know what's going on. And, there are times when you can speculate and say like, hey, look, this dude's, shrugging his shoulders or like gesturing at his teammates like he's frustrated. Like that stuff is easy to read. I don't know what specifically is going on with Poole, but I think what's pretty clear is that there is definitely a huge mental aspect, and we don't really know what's driving that, but I think so much of it is confidence, because Matt, like in that Spurs game, he had so many plays where he was just identifying like, I've got a mismatch right now. Pirtle or whoever the big on the floor was at the time, is like pulled out of the paint right now. He's in slow, like getting slow in transition. I'm just going to make one move. I'm going to get downhill and I'll probably be my guy to the cup. And he did that a lot. And then I feel like in some of these other games, he will have the same positioning and have the same opportunities to get aggressive. And he just kind of settles for a step back, or, just drives a little bit and then kicks and tries to, he tries to like create an advantage for someone else. But when he's not really fully committing to it, like you got to collapse the paint, man. You can't just, like take 2 steps and kick. Like that's not really helping the team the way that you're being paid to. Like, if we're being honest, like he's supposed to be the other guy who can tilt the defense. Like, as much as Klay has his struggles, he's never been the guy to take the ball on his hands and drive to the cup and kick it back out, throw the defense in rotation. Like, that's not his game. That's not what they pay him to do. But they're paying Poole because he's got a disgusting first step. And like you said, he can just get to the hole whenever he wants. And if he's not doing that, then it really throws a lot of this roster off on the offensive end. And then the defense is just, it is what it is right now. Like he's making some strides. Like I think he's learning that he's got the athleticism to be a pretty decent chase guy coming around screens. Like just because he gets knocked out of position and because the guy's getting downhill doesn't mean he's out of the play anymore. But the off-ball stuff is just like there's no excuse for it anymore. Guys are victims of this stuff all the time. Like, Draymond does it, Steph does it, Wiggins does it, but Poole just does it so much. And it's so backbreaking to just watch a guy get a really open cut into the lane, or just like, Poole's staring at a rebound and the guy's just able to walk in for a putback. Like it's stuff.
Yeah, he has these weird habits where he will just leave shooters, like just straight up leave a shooter to go help collapse in the paint from a place where he shouldn't, first of all, and doesn't need to, second. And Chuck, he posted a clip the other day. I forget which team it was against, but it was that same exact play. He's coming off in the top of the 3-point line, collapses into the 3-point line. Was it Kevin Huerter? Kevin Huerter at the top of the key. And he just leaves Huerter, who is quite literally shooting 50% from 3 this year. And he gives the guy 9 feet, basically. Ball swings out, and it's a close game. Huerter hits a big one, and it's like, what on earth was this guy thinking?
Yeah, no, it was hard to see, like plain and simple. And I, that's the thing that worries me too, is like we from the things that we've heard, I don't want to like out anyone here, but there's definitely like some lack of authority going on in this locker room right now, and especially out there on the floor. I understand the value of bringing Andre in because he's, sort of the guy to like grab a rookie by the scruff of the neck and be like, hey, don't do that shit anymore. And they listen to him because they respect him. But I don't really think Draymond has the same respect that he did before, or commands the same level of authority that he used to. And whether that's entirely about the punch, or whether it's just kind of about like this general off-season thing, he seems to be like 80% basketball player, 20% podcaster right now. And I'm sure that's not sitting well with a lot of guys. Like, and, I don't mean to say like, don't do things off the court. Steph has plenty of like businesses and things that he's involved in, but none of them are directly like talking about basketball, affecting the basketball court. And he sure as hell not like, coming up short on the court as well. So,
well, to be fair, Draymond, like he hasn't really been an issue in terms of just like, yeah, I mean the energy, some games here and there, but for the most part, I feel like Draymond's had a decent start to the season. So,
I think more so it's like this guy just punched what their 4th best player in the face, and he can't talk anymore. He can't, like, normally if Jordan Poole was screwing up on defense, Draymond's barking up his ass and telling him what to do. And right now, this guy lost that respect and kind of lost that ability.
And you've heard it so many.
Yeah.
No, I was just like, you've heard it so many times, like in years past, like, everybody said Draymond is the heart of the team. And I think, like you guys said, like we might have lost that. Like it doesn't, you can even see Draymond, like he looks, for as well as he has played or, struggles or whatever, he does look a little less engaged, even on the bench. Like it feels like there is no, the chemistry with the team, something seems off. Like there's definitely something that seems off. And I mean, like you said, we don't like to speculate, but there hasn't been too many other offseason stuff that happened outside of, that haymaker. So but it is what it is. Like it is, you are in the situation you're at. And like Steve Kerr said, I also have never heard Steve Kerr just sound more like just dejected after a loss. He said it like nobody's gonna come help this team out. Like they have to figure this shit out themselves. And I honestly think a lot of it, like obviously there's no blame to put on Steph Curry, but I think Steph has to step up in that locker room and just put his foot down and say, look, we just won a fucking championship. I'm busting my ass at 34, 35 years old and putting up numbers, and none of you guys are willing to help out. Young guys, you guys aren't making the necessary strides. Like this is why we kept you. We kept you over guys over vets. We gave you guys this opportunity, and you guys aren't taking this by the fucking throat and running with this. Wiseman got sent down to the G League. Kuminga's in and out of the lineup. Moody's in and out of the rotation. You got guys like JaMychal Green that can't play. Dante was hurt. So, like, there's so many stuff around Steph that just the way this roster was constructed, if I'm Steph, you got to be pissed at someone. Like, if it's Klay, if it's JP, if it's the entire fucking team for all I care. Like,
Bob, Joe.
Like, I want Steph to drop I know he's like the nicest guy you probably ever meet and seems like a very stand-up dude. But bro, Steph, get a mean streak, man. Like
Well, and that's the thing too, is because he's that nice guy, it carries so much more weight. Like Draymond yelling and screaming is like par for the course.
Yeah,
yeah. That's why no one reacted when he.
And like
you're saying, I miss it right now because I know when he's yelling and screaming, he's involved. But like when Steph gets angry, like viscerally angry, like we see this stuff from other guys all the time, and like everyone exploded when Steph just did that little like hop step in the Orlando game because like Wiseman wouldn't set the right screen for him. Like that's what we're used to with Steph. Just the slightest like physical showing that he's upset, we're just like, oh man, he is losing it right now.
And like I'm not saying that we haven't seen Steph be like pissed this season, like you said, the Wiseman thing, picking up that tech against the Kings or the Cavs, whoever it was, and then last night just slamming the ball down after I think it was a bad foul or bad shot or whatever. So like we're seeing Steph, like he's obviously frustrated, but I don't want to say take a page out of LeBron's book and like call out the entire team, but like you got to do something to spark these guys because if he's the head of this dragon, and obviously the rest of them are not falling in place for whatever reason. But it's so like in that locker room, in this organization, Steph Curry's always been that kind of like guiding light. He needs to be that dude and step up right now and get this team back on track. Cause like Steve Kerr said, nobody's gonna be there to help him out. Like they have to figure this shit out, and they have to figure this out quick. Like you said, Chuck, we're 20% into the season, like 15 games in. This is now when like the identity of the team kind of gets shaped. These next 30 to 45 games as you kind of get into the All-Star break. Like this is the time that this team has to step up, and the longer that they kind of sway away from 500 and don't still can't fix these mistakes. We're seeing the same mistakes every night, and like we can blame the bench all you want to, and it's a problem. But there's so, like you guys said, there's so many other things that this team has trouble with right now that the time's now. Like and Steph has to, for better or worse, take on more responsibility than he already has, and really get this team back on track.
So we've all kind of laid out a number of issues that we've noticed. You're Bob, you're Joe, you're Steve, you're Steph. You're tackling, we'll say like one issue. Okay. Chuck, what's the first thing or the main thing you feel like needs to get taken care of for this team to find its way again?
I think we've talked about this before, but you got to turn some of these non-productive roster spots into productive ones. And, we all know what that likely entails, whether it's trades, whether it's signing new players, whatever it's going to be. You need to make those kind of things happen because, for all the struggles that have been going on right now, the one struggle the Warriors really don't have is health. Besides Dante DiVincenzo, like missing a good amount of time, the team's been pretty healthy.
Knock on wood.
And they're still not good. So what happens when, you're entirely 30-plus core, save for Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney, who are like functionally invincible, start to miss games?
Don't
knock on fucking
Chuck.
wood, man.
All right, yeah. Look, I got the wood here. Don't worry. But like I think I think that's like a very real possibility that you got to look at too. Not only do you have guys who are not producing, but you don't have the depth to withstand any sort of injury right now. Like that is such a real concern to me because you could turn from like, are we going to be on the play-in bubble to like, oh God, this is 2019 all over again. Like that's not impossible at this point. So that's what really
it's a literal Steph or Draymond injury away. Like if one of those two guys goes down and is out for 3 weeks, they will go. They will have for those 2 weeks. They'll have a 200 winning percentage. That'll be it. Gautam, do you have a number one on the wish list or the to-do list?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Chuck. I think that just with the way the roster is constructed is a problem. You have 14 spots. One of them is Andre Iguodala, who's not playing. 3 of them are rookie or young guys that aren't playing, and your 2 vet signings have been very, very subpar. So I definitely think that is definitely a big issue. But for me, I think it goes back to solving just what's going to get you wins right now, and it's what we talked about. For me, I want to see that JP and Klay switch. I genuinely think that getting JP going with that first unit, just having him be that explosive scorer that he is, along with let Klay hook up some shots, man. Like if he's with that bench unit, he most likely will be the primary scorer along with Wiggs, but it just gives Klay that just cushion, not necessarily cushion, but just the ability to, play freely. You kind of saw him hit a couple threes down the stretch in garbage time last night against the Suns. So I just want to see if I'm convinced that just everything that I've seen so far, they've lost so many winnable games, even with all these issues. And I know we can talk about, they haven't played the best teams yet, but they've lost so many winnable games down the stretch that I think that if you can just get Klay and JP to figure their thing out, you'll be afloat and you will be able to rack up, 2-3 wins in a row. So I want to see that move. I don't think that, like you said, I don't know if they're going to do that. I think Steve Kerr has said it multiple times, and I don't know how Klay would take that, honestly, just with the way, his season's been going so far. I don't know how that move would be, received by him, but I genuinely think for the betterment of the team, that move could not solve everything, but definitely cover up a lot of holes, and start to pile up some W's.
Yeah, I think kind of per usual, as the third person to speak usually does when we talk. I'm kind of in between, but I can totally. Check. I was gonna probably roll with what Gautam was saying, only because you need to have a second guy who can create offense and at least provide offense for this team. And like if no matter who the Warriors trade for or add to this team, if your second best offensive player is playing timid or is not mentally present, you're gonna have problems. And if your $40 million legend shooter is not going, like, you can get whoever you want. That just means, again, the Warriors are going to be closing with guys who aren't either of those two sometimes, which is honestly unacceptable, just given who those guys are. And those two guys need to figure their stuff out, because this guy 30 is averaging 32 points a game right now. I just had to peek at Basketball Reference to check out who's doing what. Steph's almost at 33 points a game. Next up's Wiggins at 18. Then you have Jordan and Klay at 16 and 15 respectively. It should be Steph at 26 and those 3 guys all 19 21 basically, or Klay 17 and then Wiggins and Poole at 21, 20, whatever it might be. But they need to figure out a way to distribute the offensive load. And I think obviously, adding depth to this team is incredibly important. I don't think it's like a one or the other, like we've all said this whole time. This is like there are many holes to be filled right now. And figuring out though, where in the same way that Wiseman's $10 million down the drain, so far this season, Poole and Klay have been $70 million down the drain, basically. I know JP is not getting paid just yet, but those guys aren't producing like they're supposed to. And if you're not getting the production you need from guys who are making up a third of your payroll, it doesn't matter who you trade for, because if it's Steph, again, the guy that we've been talking around today in our group chat is Kuzma, right? We'd love to have Kuzma on the team, but let's say the Warriors trade for Kuzma. If they're closing games in the playoffs with Steph, DiVincenzo, Wiggins, Kuzma, and Draymond, hey, that's a sweet lineup. I'll be totally honest, but that's not going to get you a chip if Klay and JP aren't going. So, I think I think JP and Klay going is huge, but again, the Warriors need to add some basketball players to this team because, as Charlie pointed out last time, 6 guys in this team are not getting minutes basically, and that's just you're not going to get through a regular season, let alone win a title, if you only have 8 playable guys in your roster, and it's probably closer to 7.
Like we've said it before, man, you got to get to the dance, and I still think we have confidence in this team if and when they make the playoffs, that they will still be able to go on a run. But you got to get there, and the West is very competitive this year, and you got to do what you got to do. But should we? I mean, as we kind of pivot to kind of just looking for a little looking forward. But before we do that, Matt, take us away with a little anchor shout out, man.
Sounds good to me, dude.